Officers exposed for hitting a woman, but the shocking truth revealed. She's their boss. In the small town of Maplewood, known for its cozy streets and the mouth-watering scents wafting from Sarah Green's family bakery, a storm was brewing. Sarah, a 36-year-old single mother, had built her life around her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, and their bakery, Green's Goodies. Her pastries weren't just food. They were the heart of the community, bringing smiles and comfort during both good times and bad. But now, life took a harsh turn as she stood on the precipice of an unexpected battle. She had just been promoted to chief of police. The news spread like wildfire, igniting gossip and skepticism among some officers who muttered behind her back. They believed a woman's place wasn't in command, but rather in the comforting warmth of the kitchen. As Sarah kneaded dough one afternoon, her hands moving rhythmically, she contemplated how to unify her dual roles, mother and leader. Each day, she poured her heart into both her baking and her responsibilities, believing it was possible to balance compassion with authority. Yet the atmosphere thickened around Sarah during that fateful town hall meeting, a meeting that spiraled into chaos. Residents gathered, voices rising as they debated funding for the police. Tensions flared when a few officers, fueled by unwarranted pride and deep-seated biases, confronted Sarah. The peaceful gathering turned sour, anger twisting in the air like a summer storm. Before anyone could react, officers struck Sarah, leaving the crowd gasping in disbelief. Her heart raced, a tightening in her chest as silence blanketed the hall. In that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming wave of betrayal, not just for herself, but for the values she believed in. People witnessed the cruelty, and it ignited a fire within them. The clip of the incident spread across the internet. The hashtag #StandWithSarah igniting a passionate outpouring of support. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As more details emerged, the townsfolk learned Sarah's promotion was earned, not gifted. She had stood up for a local man wrongfully accused by those very officers, exposing their biases. The town of Maplewood divided into factions. Some now saw her as a hero, while others clung tightly to tradition, resisting the winds of change she represented. In a gripping confrontation, Sarah found herself face to face with the officers. Her voice, steady and clear, called out their stubbornness, forcing them to confront their deep-rooted beliefs about gender and power. The energy in the room crackled as emotions simmered, a tense moment where everything could change. Would Maplewood embrace a new vision of leadership, or would it remain shackled by its past? As whispers spread and eyes filled with hope and uncertainty, Sarah knew she was standing at the intersection of justice and tradition, poised to make her stand. But as the cries for justice echoed around her, only time would tell how the story would unfold. The days that followed the incident were tumultuous. Maplewood had turned into a powder keg of emotions, and Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Each morning, she woke up with a knot in her stomach, dreading news of more protests or backlash. Yet, she knew she had to keep pushing forward for both her daughter and the future she envisioned for the town. Lily noticed her mother's anxiety. As they prepared pastries together, the little girl's innocent chatter filled the air. "Mom, why do people say those mean things about you?" she asked, dipping her fingers into flour with a frown. Sarah's heart sank at the question. She tightened her grip on the dough, searching for the right words. "Sometimes people are afraid of change, sweetheart," she finally said, her voice soft but firm. "But that doesn't mean we can't try to make things better." Lily looked up, her blue eyes wide and understanding. "You're trying to be a good boss, right?" Sarah smiled through the tension. "Exactly. And being a good boss means standing up for what's right. But standing up had its costs. Images of that disastrous town hall meeting replayed in Sarah's mind, taunting her in her quieter moments. Each comment from the officers echoed with both malice and confusion. They had not only struck her physically, but also sought to shake her resolve. Yet Sarah remembered the faces of those who stood with her in solidarity, the wide-eyed townsfolk, the supportive voices online. Their hashtags and slogans became her rallying cries. That Friday, a community meeting was called to address concerns and discuss the fallout from the confrontation. As Sarah entered the small school auditorium, the air was heavy with anticipation. Familiar faces greeted her, some warm with encouragement, others cool and skeptical. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that hope and healing could arise from this chaos. The mayor tapped the mic, clearing his throat to start the conversation. "Thank you for coming, everyone. We need to listen to each other and find a way forward." The murmurs filled the room, buzzing with unease and uncertainty, and Sarah felt her stomach knot tighter. When it was her turn to speak, she stood at the front, tall but vulnerable. "I didn't seek this position for fame or power," she began, locking eyes with the people. "I want to serve this community, to protect it, to keep it safe for our children. But to do this effectively, we need to be a team." As she spoke, a surge of confidence bloomed within her. Words flowed free, sparking flickers of understanding in the crowd. They were scared of change, yes, but they were also tired of the status quo. Let us transform this department into what it should be, an example of justice and integrity. Together, we can make Maplewood a place where everyone feels safe. There was a stirring in the audience, a subtle shift in mood. It was as if a long-held breath was finally being released. Crowds began to murmur in agreement. Sarah could feel the energy shift, a collective acknowledgement of their need for safety, for growth. But just as encouragement filled the air, a familiar silhouette emerged from the shadows of the room: Officer Harris, arms crossed, his face hard and unyielding. His presence drew the room's attention, a palpable tension brimming between them. She had fought hard to earn respect, yet here stood a reminder that not everyone was ready to let go of the past. Are you really willing to sacrifice integrity for blind idealism? His voice boomed, cutting through the growing positivity like a knife. Sarah braced herself, heart racing as the room fell silent. This was not just about her anymore. It was about the future of Maplewood. How would she respond to this challenge? Now, with the stakes rising and eyes fixed firmly on her, one question echoed in Sarah's mind. Was she prepared for the consequences of her convictions? Sarah's heart raced. The room felt smaller, the air thicker with anticipation. She stared into Officer Harris's cold eyes, searching for a hint of the kindness she once thought was there. Blind idealism? She repeated, voice steady despite the tremor within. "No, Officer Harris. What I stand for is not idealism, it's reality. Everyday people in this town deserve safety, respect, and accountability. That's what I'm fighting for." A tense silence filled the space. Some faces turned toward Harris, expecting him to retaliate, while others shot glances at Sarah, admiration and fear mingling in their eyes. There was no turning back now. This wasn't just a meeting, it was an awakening. "You're being naive," Harris snapped back, his voice dripping with disdain. "These people don't understand the complexities of law enforcement. They want change, but what they really need is to trust us. Trust is earned, officer," she shot back, her voice gaining volume. "And how can anyone trust a system that hides behind closed doors and bruised lives?" As the tension simmered, she felt a shift in the crowd. It was as if the air was charged with an electric awareness. Sarah glanced at Lily, sitting quietly in the back, her tiny hands tightly clasped in her lap. That sight grounded her. This was for her daughter. This was for every hopeful child in Maplewood. "Sarah," a familiar voice called from the side. It was Nancy, a longtime resident and a woman of unwavering spirit. "We're with you. What you're demanding is what we've needed for too long." "Yeah," someone exclaimed from the back. "No more hiding. We deserve transparency." The murmurs grew louder, excitement sparking among the people of Maplewood. Encouraged, Sarah pressed on. We're all part of this community. If we want change, we have to work together. Police officers should serve as protectors, not as a shield against the truth. Harris bristled, and for a moment, she thought he might challenge her again. But then, the color drained from his face, replaced by a mask of discontent. You think you can change everything? He challenged, fire in his eyes. You really think they will listen to you? You're just a boss on paper. For just one beat, a ripple of doubt crossed her own heart. What if he was right? But fear quickly morphed into resolve. I'm not just a boss. I'm a part of this community. I'm a mother, a neighbor, and a friend. I refuse to let fear dictate our future. We will face this together. The murmurs grew into supportive cheers, and Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. Yet, beneath that warmth was the chilling realization that this battle was only beginning. Just as the applause swelled, a bright light flashed from the back of the room. A journalist had burst in, camera rolling, capturing the tension that hung thick in the air. What is happening here? The reporter asked, eyes darting anxiously between Sarah and Harris. The sudden attention created an instantaneous pressure cooker effect. The room's energy shifted again, and Sarah saw the immediate flash of panic in Harris's eyes. It was a moment of vulnerability. He knew the consequences of this confrontation now could extend far beyond the confines of this room. Yet, could Sarah leverage this unexpected audience to draw more support? Would she be able to harness their concern into action, to push for the transparency she so desperately sought? What happened here today doesn't just reflect on me. It reflects on all of you, Sarah said, addressing the growing crowd and the reporter alike. It's about becoming the community we all want. We deserve better, and we can achieve it together. The room erupted in applause, but it didn't drown out the doubts still echoing within her. What awaited her after this? Would this meeting only be a small victory in a much larger war? In that moment of triumph and uncertainty, one thought emerged sharply. The real battle hadn't even begun. And with her heart pounding, Sarah realized she needed to be ready for anything. What consequences would come next? What if Harris had his own plans, lurking deeper than anyone knew? The question loomed heavily as the meeting shifted to an impromptu discussion. Sarah felt the pulse of the room, the walls now reverberating with an energy that stretched far beyond mere applause. Conversation sparked, voices rising like a tide of defiance against the wall of silence that had kept them all constrained for too long. Sarah, someone shouted from the back. What do we do next? She turned to face the crowd, their faces illuminated with a mixture of hope and apprehension. We organize, she exclaimed, her voice a rallying cry. We need to demand meetings, set up forums, get our voices heard. Excited murmurs echoed around her, a sense of urgency brewing in the room. But as the adrenaline surged, an icy tendril of fear curled itself around her heart. The risk of retaliation loomed large. Officer Harris was not a man accustomed to being challenged. What lengths would he go to protect his own? In the corner of the room, the journalist shifted, positioning their camera to capture every moment. Sarah could feel the weight of the lens on her, amplifying every word she said, every move she made. Each flinch of her fingers was potential fodder for both supporters and detractors. Sarah, what about the police? They have all the power, don't they? Nancy's voice, usually firm, now wavered in uncertainty. The crowd quieted momentarily, as if holding their breath. Power is only as strong as those who choose to wield or confront it, Sarah replied, her heart thudding loudly against her ribs. Dangerous systems thrive in silence. If we stand together, we become a force they can't ignore. Right? Someone called, their confidence breaking through the fears. Together, we're stronger. Let us start a petition. Another voice chimed in, igniting a spark of enthusiasm. Demand a town hall meeting. Let us air it all out. Ideas began to swirl, the room alive with determination. Yet, deep down, uncertainty gnawed at Sarah. It sparked a fire, True, but what if the flames turned on them? As she looked at the faces, she saw not just neighbors, but friends and families that could be hurt. The children who depended on their parents to protect them. The families who could find themselves torn apart by the very system they were fighting against. Change won't come easy, she cautioned, aware of the shadows lengthening at the edges of their optimism. We need to be prepared for pushback. People will resist. Harris, she worried, would not be the only one to fight back. A deep voice cut through the chatter. What do we tell our kids when they see this? What is the legacy we're leaving? It was Tom, a father of two and a community pillar, fear etched across his features. Tonight, let us tell them we stood together instead of alone. Let us show them that silence is a choice one we refuse to make. A wave of renewed determination surged. It felt as though the room inched closer to a shared resolve, a commitment to not just themselves, but to all those who had felt powerless. But then, the door creaked open again, bringing in an unexpected guest. Officer Harris stepped in, a tornado of steady resolve wrapped in a storm of apprehension. Enough of this charade, he announced, his eyes narrowing at Sarah as if challenging her to continue. You think you can incite these people against the department? I'll make sure you regret this. Fear prickled at the back of Sarah's mind, yet she stood her ground. The stakes had risen in a heartbeat. This showdown was no longer just about words. It was a battle of wills, and the fallout was bound to burn deeper than anyone anticipated. Officer Harris, she replied, voice steady. You'll find that community holds a power you underestimate. What would be the aftermath of this confrontation? As he locked eyes with her, there was a dangerous promise lingering in the air, dark and electrifying. The real fight, Sarah realized, was just beginning, and its consequences could ignite a fire that neither of them could control. Would their quest for accountability pay off, or would it lead to disaster? The question hung, heavy as they faced off in that tense moment, each realizing that everything was about to change. The tension in the room cracked like thunder following Officer Harris's threat. The air grew thick, making it hard for Sarah to draw breath. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding in response to the weight of his gaze. She could sense the crowd tensing, a living organism that mimicked her unease. Don't you dare try to intimidate us, she said, willing her voice not to shake. We're not stepping back. This isn't about fear anymore. It's about claiming our rights. Harris's jaw tightened, and for a moment, it felt as if the world paused. Those around her flinched. Would he lash out? Would he make an example out of her? But another voice came, bold and unwavering. She's right. Tom stood, his fists clenched beside him. We have a right to know. If something's wrong, we deserve to fix it, not hide it. The room swelled with murmurs of agreement, a chorus of support swirling in the heavy atmosphere. Officer Harris seemed momentarily flustered by the unexpected unity, his confident facade cracking just a touch. Unity is nothing without authority backing it, he countered, cementing resistance in his tone. You really think the higher-ups will side with a bunch of angry civilians? You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah. A ripple of anxiety coursed through the crowd, but Sarah raised her chin, meeting Harris's glare. It's not just about us. We have voices, and we'll make sure no one can silence them, including you. With each challenge she threw, something shifted behind his eyes, something darker, angrier. She could almost read the thoughts turning over in his mind, calculating his next move. Was there more behind those threats? Then bring it on, he hissed. Just know that the department doesn't take kindly to disloyalty or insurrection. The silence that followed became almost unbearable, a chasm filled with unsaid words. Everyone felt that they stood on the precipice of change, yet just below lay the unknown, a darkness that could swallow them whole. Nervous laughter broke the spell. It was Nancy, her shaky voice betraying the fear bouncing around. Well, I guess we'll have to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes, huh? A few chuckles broke the tension, but Sarah could see the fear flickering in people's eyes. They wanted to believe in what she was saying, yet the shadows of doubt loomed large. Each face reflected a common worry. What if they pushed too hard? As the crowd began to mull over their next steps, the journalist in the corner captured it all, their camera clicks sounding like gunfire in the thick atmosphere. Sarah could feel the weight of the moment, but also the surge of something more profound, a spark igniting hope in even the most cautious hearts in the room. "Let us get organized," she called out over the low rumble. "Petitions, town halls, meetings, whatever it takes. We can't let fear make these choices for us. Our voices matter. Let us show them." Inspired, people began to rise, a tide of commitment washing over the gathering moment by moment. But amidst the rumbling hope, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and not just by the camera lens. Officer Harris stood slightly apart from them, suddenly looking less like a man in authority and more like a thread unraveling at the seams. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he warned, though it faltered slightly, a sign of doubt creeping in. But Sarah didn't back down. "No, Officer Harris, you have no idea what happens when people decide to stand together." The moment crackled with unvoiced possibilities and potential repercussions, crackling like electricity in the air. The shadows gathered around. Change was brewing. It was undeniable. But would it be the kind that would heal or hurt? And just as she thought they were gaining traction, the phone in her pocket buzzed wildly, a reminder that the world outside hadn't frozen. She pulled it out and read the message, her breath catching. "We can expose this. Meet me at the diner at 9. Who could it be? A voice for her cause? Or perhaps something more sinister? With hope and trepidation entwined, she looked back at the crowd, ready to lead them into the unknown. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the need to know was irresistible. Would they uncover the truth, or was it best left buried? As Sarah stood there, the buzzing phone felt like a line connecting her to something bigger than herself. She inadvertently clenched it, her heart racing, the adrenaline fueling a desire to leap into action. It was nearly 9. She needed a plan. "Tom," she called, breaking through the voices of those still debating the next step. When he turned, determination etched into his features, she hurried over. "I just got a message. Someone wants to meet me at the diner, says they can expose the truth." Tom's brows knitted together. "Are you sure about this? It could be a trap." "I know," she admitted, nerves swirling. "But what if this is a chance to get real answers? We can't sit back anymore. The risk may be worth it." Other faces in the crowd turned toward them, curiosity mixing with concern. They needed to see more than just Officer Harris's threats. They craved clarity, a direction. Sarah took a deep breath, tapping into the energy of those who stood with her. "We can't wait around. Who else with me?" She raised her voice, and hands slowly shot up, a murmuring wave of support crashing against doubt. "I'll come with you," Tom declared, stepping forward resolutely. "Me too," Nancy joined, a tremor still in her tone. The group pledged to back her, and the urgency flooded the room. They made plans split into pairs to cover more ground, stay in contact. Would they face something like underground whispers, or would the truth be right beneath the surface? As they began to disperse, Sarah felt both thrill and dread tighten around her chest. They were walking a fine line between bravery and folly, an exhilarating dance on the edge of chaos. Tension crackled in the air like the static before a storm. Whispers etched with fear and resistance filled the space as they sorted through tasks, gathering themselves like a small army preparing for battle. The diner loomed ahead, its neon sign flickering in a promise both warm and ominous. The ride over felt surreal. The air was filled with unsaid words, and the headlights danced across the dark road. Sarah glanced sideways at Tom, who was quietly focused, eyes fixed ahead. Their minds spun with possibilities as the diner came into view. Once inside, the scent of coffee and grilled food wrapped around them, grounding yet confounding. People milled about, but what caught Sarah off guard was the corner booth the figure slouched there, partially hidden in shadows. As they approached, the dim light flickered on a familiar face. It was Charlie, a local videographer who had been investigating the police for a while now, and had shared rumors of corruption and cover-ups. He had the eye of someone who had seen too much Too often. Sarah, he said, a grim smile barely reaching his lips. I'm glad you came. Charlie, what's this about? She pressed, urgency pulsing through her voice. He handed her a folder, thick with papers stacked awkwardly. It's everything I've been working on about the department. The truth is messier than you could imagine. Sarah flipped through the pages, her heart racing as names and incidents stirred buried memories. This was bigger than anything she had anticipated. As she scanned further down, one name caught her breath, someone prominent within the department. Is this? No, it can't be, she whispered, her voice trailing off. Things are never what they seem, Sarah, Charlie said, and you're about to find out just how twisted this story goes. The chilling realization settled in her gut. Could it be possible that the people they trusted were interwoven in something darker? Something catastrophic? Sarah steadied her breath, the diner growing quiet as they processed what this meant. She looked back up at Charlie, determination burning in her eyes. This has to get out. He nodded, an eerie seriousness settling over him. But once it does, things will change for you, and not all of them will be good. As the shadows seemed to close in on their conversation, one question echoed in Sarah's mind. Could she unmask the truth and survive the fallout? The diner's door swung open, and the weight of the world seemed to shift, revealing figures stepping in. Was it backup, or had they been trailed? Sarah's breath caught, heart pounding in a time-warp moment fraught with possibilities. The confrontation was only beginning. Would they be ready for what lay ahead? The door creaked open, and her heart raced harder. Tom, sensing her unease, placed a reassuring hand on her back. What do you want to do? He asked softly, eyeing the figures who had just entered. Sarah squinted through the haze of uncertainty. A couple of men in uniform strolled in, their badges glinting under the flickering light. The tension in the diner escalated, a thick, electric current winding through the room. Whispers surged, voices low and quick, morphing into a cacophony of alarm and curiosity. Stay close, Charlie urged, his brow furrowing. The air felt heavier as the officers scanned the room, their eyes landing on Sarah and Tom, then sweeping over Nancy, who had taken a few steps away, her arms crossed defensively. Silent recognition flashed over the officers' faces, one she didn't want to acknowledge, but couldn't ignore. Sarah, we need to leave, Tom said, urgency coloring his voice. Her mind battled between flight and fight. She gripped the edges of the folder in her hands, the weight of its contents anchoring her to this moment. The truth was too important to abandon. No, she whispered. Don't be reckless. Tom shot back, his eyes wide with concern. Reckless or brave? She countered, determination flickering within her. Telling the truth shouldn't feel like a crime. As the officers approached, she stepped forward, swallowing her fear, her voice finding strength. What are you doing here? One officer leaned in with a cocky smirk. Just making sure everything's under control. Control? The word echoed in her mind, a bitter reminder of all the things that had spiraled out of it. She needed to expose the deep-rooted corruption, but standing there, the shadows of the diner flickered between truth and intimidation. Charlie sidled closer, whispering, they can't intimidate you. Call their bluff. Feeling the heat of the gathered crowd behind her, Sarah straightened her back. She was done with shadows. You can't silence us anymore. At that moment, her phone pinged again, jolting her focus. It was a message from an unnamed sender, reading, "We know where you are. Be careful." It sent a chill down her spine, her instincts flaring with alarm. What's wrong? Tom's eyes darted, scanning the room for potential threats. Someone's watching us, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. The officers exchanged glances, sensing the change in tension. They moved closer, one of them stepping up to her face. You're in way over your head, sweetheart, he taunted, his voice dripping with condescension. Yeah, but it seems like I'm finally getting somewhere, Sarah replied with defiance, adjusting her grip on the folder. What have you got to hide? The air crackled with danger as a challenge hung between them. The atmosphere shifted, something dark brewing beneath the surface. The other patrons edged closer, feeding off the tension, unmoving like statues in anticipation of the climax. "Get out of here now, and we can forget you even came," one officer warned menacingly. An underlying threat tinged his tone, and Sarah felt it pierce through her confidence. "Or what? You'll keep lying?" "I refuse to back down," she said, her voice growing stronger. Suddenly, without warning, Nancy stepped in front of Sarah, her eyes ablaze. "You have no right to intimidate her. We all know what you've done," she stated, her voice trembling with passion. "Two against one T save you," the officer hissed, eyes narrowing to eye in that moment. Sarah felt an avalanche of overwhelming emotions, fear, boldness, and the intricate tapestry of determination. She realized that this was a fight bigger than herself. It was for everyone who had felt silenced, a community ready to stand up. "This isn't just about me," she declared, a wave of raw honesty surging through her. People deserve to know the truth. But just as the gravity of her words settled, a loud crash echoed from the diner's back door, causing everyone to spin toward the sound. The night felt alive with chaos, and uncertainty unfurled like a storm. Was this the moment they had been waiting for, or a harbinger of more trouble to come? Who had just entered, and what would it mean for their fight for justice? The room held its breath, Sarah's pulse racing as she braced for whatever would come next. The back door swung open wide, its frame shaking as a tall figure stepped through, silhouetted against the harsh light spilling from the kitchen. The diner fell silent, the earlier tension replaced by a fresh wave of curiosity. Sarah squinted, struggling to make out the newcomer's features through the glare. "Liam?" Tom exclaimed, a mix of confusion and relief on his face as the figure stepped into the light. Liam, the diner's manager, looked disheveled but determined. His shirt was rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes, but it was the fury in his gaze that made Sarah's heart race anew. "What's going on here?" he demanded, scanning the room and landing on the officers with unmistakable disdain. The two officers exchanged wary glances, their bravado momentarily cracked. "This is for your own safety, Liam," one tried to insist, though his tone lacked the previous edge. "Don't you dare pull that on me," Liam snapped, his voice booming. "You're not here to keep anyone safe. You're here to bully people." His fierce loyalty lit a fire in Sarah's chest. In that instant, uncertainty morphed into camaraderie, and she nodded at him, grateful for his appearance. Liam had always been a pillar in the community. He had been a steadfast ally in her fight for justice. Before further words could pass, another crash erupted from the back. A group of masked figures burst through, their faces hidden beneath black hoodies, leaving chaos in their wake. Panic surged among the patrons, chairs scraped against the tiled floor, and Sarah's heart plummeted. This had just escalated beyond her worst nightmares. One of the masked intruders pointed a flashlight, illuminating the terrified faces around them. "Everyone back off. This doesn't concern you," he yelled. "Like hell it doesn't." Nancy shouted back, her voice unwavering, a defiant stance in stark contrast to the fear in everyone else's eyes. Sarah admired her courage, but also felt the weight of responsibility all over again. This fight was hers to lead. "Stay behind me," Liam called, stepping protectively in front of Sarah and Nancy. His chest rose and fell as he faced the intruders, unwavering. "This is a place of peace. You need to leave." The officer who had taunted Sarah hesitated, staring at the masked figures who had upended his authority in a blink. An awkward standoff flickered in the murky air, tensions rising alongside chaos as people scrambled to gather their belongings and find a safe route. Sarah gripped the folder tightly, heart pounding. The stakes had never been higher. What had started as a confrontation about truth and corruption now involved the safety of everyone she cared about. "Get away from here, Liam," she breathlessly warned, anxiety cutting through her words. "This is a mess." He held her gaze, strength radiating from him despite the chaos. "If we stand together, we're stronger," he urged. At that moment, the officer advanced, reaching for something in his pocket. Sarah caught her breath. Was this really happening? Instinctively, she stepped forward, sharing a glance with Nancy, and they both saw the same thing, the fire to fight back. "Let us show them we won. Back down," Sarah called, her voice resonating through the noise, igniting something in the crowd. The quiet resolve in the diner morphed into collective strength as people rallied together. Mothers pulled children close. The elderly took a step forward, and those once simmering in the background steadied themselves, fists clenched. This was not just about her anymore. It was about their community, about reclaiming their power. But as fists raised and voices united, Sarah felt a deeper tremor in her gut, an inkling that the fight ahead was not just physical, but perhaps, far more terrifying, a war of truths wrapped in shadows. The masked figures shifted, tension hanging thick around them. Would they retreat, or would this turn into a far more dangerous melee? The air felt charged, as if the very walls of the diner could spark a revolution or collapse under pressure. The moment felt fragile, unstable. What would happen next? The tension in the diner could be cut with a knife. Sarah felt her heart race, adrenaline flooding her veins as she looked around at the frightened faces. There was fear, yes, but there was something more. Determination echoed in the way people instinctively gathered closer together, shoulders brushing against one another, linking arms in an unspoken pact. Liam stood resolutely in front, arms crossed, defiantly challenging the masked intruders. The flashlight beam danced around the room, catching the flash of eyes wide with fear, but also burning with anger. "You think you can come in here and intimidate us?" Liam's voice boomed, cutting through the din. "You're mistaken." One of the masked figures sneered, his posture aggressive. "We're looking for someone. You'll all regret getting in the way." The shrill tone sent a ripple of fear through the diner, and Sarah's instinct kicked in. "What do you want?" "We can talk," she shouted, trying to take charge, hoping to buy time. The masked man shifted his attention to her, a glimmer of interest appearing in his eyes. "Talk. You think this is a conversation? Maybe it can be. We don't want any trouble," Sarah pressed, stepping forward cautiously. "No one here is your enemy." Behind her, Liam remained vigilant, fists clenched, but she could sense the tension taut in his frame. "Sarah, don't," he urged, concern creeping into his voice. But Sarah felt the weight of responsibility drawing her deeper into the fray. "No, Liam, they're going to hurt someone if we don't stop this." She turned back to the intruders with unwavering courage. "What do you want?" A beat of silence hung in the air, and then the second masked figure stepped forward, surprisingly calm. "We know about the corruption in this town. You've been digging into things you shouldn't, and it's time to pay the price." The crowd gasped, whispers circulating, the air thickening with the weight of acknowledgement. The implications were staggering. Sarah's investigation had truly rattled cages. "What do you even know?" she challenged, her voice steely. Their leader laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that sent shivers down her spine. "We know everything, sweetheart, and you're not going to walk away from this." Before she could respond, an elderly man shouted, "You think we're scared of you? You don't scare us." A wave of strength rolled through the patrons, feeding off one another's resolve. They all knew the stakes now. It was not just about Sarah anymore. It was about everyone in the community uniting against threats. "Let's get out of here, guys," an officer shouted, his confidence reignited. "Back us up." But the intruders stood firm, impatient for chaos. Caught off guard by the unyielding spirit of the diner, they shifted nervously. For a moment, Sarah's heart swelled with hope. Maybe they could turn this around. "Back off," Liam insisted again, stepping protectively in front of her, voice low but fierce. "If you want to fight, you'll get it." Time seemed to freeze, a heartbeat suspended in air as both sides gauged one another. Would these thugs back down, aware they were facing not just individuals, but a united community? The weight of their collective will was palpable, and surely even the masked figures could feel it. Just as clarity began to flicker in Sarah's mind, a loud crash came from the kitchen. The door swung open, revealing a shadowy silhouette. "What's going on here?" A new voice called, cutting through the air like thunder. All eyes turned, and uncertainty flooded every corner of the diner. Who was that? In an instant, and perhaps the moment Sarah could least afford, confusion spiraled as more figures arrived, and the stakes climbed even higher. A chill crawled up her spine. What had just entered added another layer of danger to an already chaotic scene. Who were these newcomers, and would they tip the precarious balance toward devastation or salvation? The diner's atmosphere hung thick with tension as the silhouette from the kitchen stepped into the light. Gasps rippled through the crowd, the air charged with uncertainty and fear. It was Deputy Morgan, a familiar face who had once stood alongside Sarah, believing in justice and community. Deputy Morgan. Sarah felt hope surge briefly before fear clawed at her insides. Would he side with the intruders or uphold their cause? What's happening here? Morgan scanned the room, eyes darting between the masked figures and the terrified patrons. I asked them what they wanted, and they just want to threaten us, Sarah managed to say, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Morgan's face hardened. This area is off limits. I suggest you leave, he said to the masked figures, his tone brokering no argument. They hesitated, glancing nervously at each other, the tension crackling as the crowd held its breath. The intimidating energy seemed to diffuse slightly. Who do you think you are, tough guy? One of the intruders sneered, their bravado faltering. You think we follow rules? I think you'll think twice about the choices you're making right now, Morgan replied, stepping forward, unyielding. The masked figures shifted again, uneasy under the weight of the deputy's resolve and the fire evident in the diner. The crowd, emboldened, began to murmur in agreement, their voices rising like a swell of defiance against the intruders. Feeling that unexpected unity coursing through her, Sarah joined in. You need to leave now. This community isn't afraid of your threats anymore. Then, unexpectedly, the door creaked open again, revealing a group of supporters Sarah hadn't anticipated. News reporters and residents streamed in, flashing cameras relentlessly, capturing every moment. The presence of the media turned the tide, the officers standing off against the masked figures now under public scrutiny. Back off. We're not afraid, Nancy shouted, her courage contagious. The patrons rallied, expressions shifting from fear to fierce determination. The atmosphere transformed into a volatile mix of chaos and hope. Just walk away, Morgan yelled, a calm authority emanating from him now that the cameras were rolling. You don't want this on your conscience. He gestured to the reporters documenting the unfolding crisis, knowing their attention could spell doom for the intruders. As the masked figures exchanged anxious glances, it became clear they underestimated the strength of the community. This isn't over. One of them barked, taking a step back, weighed down by the arms of accountability, now closing in on their retreat. You'll regret this, Green. Don't threaten me, Sarah shot back, her voice steeled with newfound clarity. You want to silence us. With one last look of fury, the intruders turned and bolted from the diner, cloaked in shadows, leaving behind the crackle of fading menace. The moment of triumph was electric. Everyone erupted in cheers, celebrating their unity like a long-awaited storm breaking. Relief and joy mingled in the air, a bittersweet concoction. Yet something nagged at the back of Sarah's mind, the knowledge that their fight had just begun. Holy smokes, we did it! Tom's voice cut through her thoughts, joy evident in his wide grin. Not yet, Sarah said, reminding him. This isn't over until justice is served. Morgan nodded, stepping closer. We have work to do, Sarah. This isn't simply a battle against threats outside. It's about rooting out the corruption lurking within. Together, they began to strategize, the fire of determination igniting chats among the community, creating plans for transparency and accountability that would reshape Maplewood's future. The gathering was no longer just a celebration. It was a spark fueling their resolve. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah stood with Lily beside the diner, the warmth of their bakery's lights spilling outside. Mom, Lily's voice pulled her from the chaos of thoughts, a serene confidence threading through her words. "You're really brave." "No, sweetheart," Sarah smiled, ruffling her hair. "We're brave together, and together we can make things better for everyone." In that moment, Sarah understood that healing would take time, but they had set the course for change. The hurt would no longer whisper in the shadows. This was their community. This was their story. As they stepped back into the light, Sarah felt hope settle in her chest. The fight ahead would challenge them, but they were all in this together, ready to reclaim their home. This was only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.